There comes a moment in life when the silence of evening no longer feels like a gentle friend. The same quiet that once soothed now presses in with weight, as though the very walls lean closer. You sit in your familiar chair, the one that has carried your body through years of living, and instead of rest you feel the stirring of unease. Thoughts wander where you never invited them, memories that ache, worries that tighten, futures that whisper with uncertainty. And without announcing itself, anxiety takes a seat beside you. It does not crash in loudly. It slips in softly, like a shadow at the edge of candlelight. And suddenly you ask, is this who I have become? Am I now someone defined by worry? But what if that assumption is wrong? What if anxiety is not a verdict on your strength, not proof of weakness or decline? What if anxiety is, instead, a message, a call to pay attention, a guidepost pointing to what truly matters? In Buddhist wisdom, suffering is never seen as punishment. It is seen as a teacher, arriving with lessons we may have avoided for too long. Anxiety is not an enemy to conquer, but an invitation to understand. In the still hours of life, when busyness has slowed, we finally hear what has always been whispering beneath the noise. And that whisper carries a question. Will you keep resisting, or will you learn to listen? Today we explore one profound thought, an ancient Buddhist teaching that does not erase anxiety, but changes how we hold it. And it begins with the roots of our suffering, attachment and aversion. Anxiety does not fall upon us like lightning from a clear sky. It grows from roots that lie deep within the patterns of the mind. And in the language of the Buddha, those roots are called attachment and aversion. They are not abstract concepts. They are habits woven into the way we respond to life itself. Attachment is the grasping hand of the mind. It clings to comfort, to certainty, to the familiar faces and routines that shape our identity. We hold tightly to youth, to health, to loved ones, to the roles we have played for decades. And when the winds of impermanence threaten to move them, that clinging transforms into fear. The hand says, "Do not take this from me." On the other side stands aversion, the mind's impulse to push away what it does not want. Pain, loss, illness, loneliness, even the thought of aging, these are things we try to reject, to cover, to battle, as though sheer resistance could keep them at bay. We imagine that if we push hard enough, suffering will simply pass us by. But clinging and resisting are exhausting, and more than that, they do not work. The Buddha's words remind us, whatever is subject to arising is subject to ceasing. Everything changes. The body changes. Friendships shift. Even emotions, as endless as they seem in the moment, rise and fall like waves upon a shore. Yet it is not change itself that torments us. It is our refusal to accept change that breeds anxiety. I once knew a man named Tom, a retired sailor who walked the same lakeside path every morning at 6 o'clock. It was his ritual, his anchor. But when a hip injury ended those walks, Tom unraveled. It wasn't only a habit he lost, it was part of the story of who he believed himself to be. Morning after morning, he stared out the window, haunted by absence. His anxiety swelled, not because the world was ending, but because he could not release the version of himself who once moved freely. This is what the Buddha pointed to. Our suffering is not born from change itself, but from the unwillingness to let go of what has already shifted. When we cling to what has passed or resist what is present, anxiety fills the space in between, and it whispers the lie, "You are losing control." But here is the liberating truth. We never had control to begin with. The lotus blooms only in muddy water, and yet it blooms in beauty. Likewise, peace does not come from keeping everything the same. Peace arises when we open our hands, when we loosen the grip, stop pushing, and allow life to be what it is. You are not your routines. You are not your youth. You are not your past. The more you release your attachment to how things should be, the more anxiety releases its hold as well. As the Dhammapada teaches, from attachment springs grief, from attachment springs fear. But he who is free from attachment knows neither grief nor fear. So the invitation is simple yet profound. Unclench the fists of the mind, even if only a little. Allow this moment to arrive without resistance. And when you begin to see anxiety not as a loss of control but as a signal to loosen your grip, you take the first step toward freedom. In the next reflection, we'll turn to one powerful Buddhist phrase, 4 simple words, that can shift how we meet every anxious thought. This too is just a thought. If anxiety has roots in grasping and resisting, then one of its strongest branches is the stream of thoughts that flows endlessly through the mind. Have you ever noticed how one anxious thought can take hold and multiply until it feels as if you are living inside a world created by your own imagination? A single what-if becomes an entire universe of worry. It may begin simply, what if I forget something important? What if my body fails me? What if tomorrow brings loss? And before long, the present moment has vanished, replaced by the shadows of possible futures. This is the trick of the mind. It creates stories, vivid and convincing, and then persuades us to believe them as truth. But Buddhist wisdom offers a simple, liberating insight. Not every thought is true. A thought is not a fact. A thought is a cloud, drifting across the wide sky of your awareness. And just as the sky is not defined by the clouds that pass through it, you are not defined by every anxious idea that crosses your mind. The phrase is this: this too is just a thought. Pause with those words. Let them land softly. This is not denial. This is clarity. When the mind whispers, you are unsafe, you are failing, you are broken, we can gently respond, this too is just a thought. I once knew a woman named Marlene, a widow in her 70s, who found herself consumed by new fears. Alone in her living room, she would wonder, what if I fall and no one comes? What if I forget to turn off the stove? What if I lose my memory? These were not impossible scenarios, but they were not happening in that moment. They were thoughts. Yet her body responded as if they were real. Her chest tightened, her breath grew shallow, her nights became restless. Marlene began attending a mindfulness group at her community center. At first she felt skeptical when the teacher asked everyone to write down, "This thought is not me, it is just a thought." But slowly, with practice, it became her anchor. Each time fear arose, she whispered to herself, "This is not me, this is just a thought." And like a knot loosening with patience, the grip of her anxiety began to soften. This is the practice of non-identification, the wisdom of recognizing that our thoughts are movements in the mind, not the essence of who we are. Some thoughts are useful, guiding us to safety or responsibility. Others are echoes of old wounds or inherited habits of worry, but none of them define our true nature. Think of it this way. To live inside every thought is to be trapped in a small, shifting room. To step outside and observe the thought is to stand in the open air, where the room no longer contains you. It is a shift as subtle as stepping to the side of a passing wave instead of being pulled under it. The great teacher Ajahn Chah once said, "If you let go a little, you'll have a little peace. If you let go a lot, you'll have a lot of peace. If you let go completely, you'll be free." And so, the next time anxiety arises in the form of a thought, try this gentle response. This too is just a thought. No struggle, no shame, just recognition. And with that recognition, a space opens, a space where peace can breathe. In our next reflection, we'll explore how to anchor ourselves in that space more deeply through the practice of mindfulness, the simple art of returning to the present moment. Anxiety is always reaching forward. It projects into the future with questions we cannot yet answer, or it pulls us backward into memories we cannot change. Rarely does it allow us to remain where peace is always waiting in the present moment. This is why the Buddha taught, do not dwell in the past, do not dream of the future, concentrate the mind on the present moment. Mindfulness is the doorway to that teaching. It is not about forcing stillness or erasing thoughts. It is about intimacy with what is here. It is about learning to notice with gentleness the rise and fall of your breath, the sensations in your body, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the sounds of the world around you. The mind will drift, of course it will, but every time we notice and return, that return is the practice. That noticing is the victory. I once knew a man named Frank, a quiet carpenter who had lost his wife after many years of companionship. The silence of his home, once a sanctuary, became unbearable. In that silence, small worries grew into storms. What if I forget something important? What if I become a burden to my children? What if no one notices if something happens to me? These thoughts swirled most fiercely in the empty hours of the day. At his doctor's suggestion, Frank joined a local mindfulness group. On his first visit, the teacher instructed them simply, sit, close your eyes, and follow your breath. Do not change it. Do not force it. Just notice it. Frank later admitted that at first all he noticed was the noise of his mind, but gradually something shifted. He began to hear the sound of birds outside. He noticed the warmth in his hands, and for the first time in months, he felt a flicker of calm. From then on, Frank practiced just 5 minutes a day in his garden. He would sit with hands resting on his knees, eyes softened, breath steady. He did not try to push thoughts away. He simply watched them like clouds moving across the sky. Over time, the clouds grew lighter. His anxiety did not vanish, but it no longer consumed him. This is the power of mindfulness. It reminds us that we are not the storm, we are the sky that holds it. We are not the fleeting thoughts or fears, we are the awareness in which they arise and pass. Try it with me now. Pause. Feel your feet on the floor. Notice the rhythm of your breath. Inhale gently, and as you exhale, whisper to yourself, I am here, and here is enough. This simple return transforms the moment. It does not deny difficulty. It does not demand perfection. It offers presence, and presence is where peace begins. As Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, feelings come and go like clouds in a windy sky. Conscious breathing is my anchor. So, the next time anxiety stirs in the quiet of your day, do not battle it. Offer it no resistance. Instead, offer it your breath, your attention, your gentle return to now. Because the present moment asks nothing of you but this, to be here. And once you have found this anchor, there is another step, a softening of the heart that deepens the path even more. In our next reflection, we will turn to the practice of compassion and how kindness, especially toward ourselves, can transform anxiety into something far less frightening and far more human. There is a quiet voice that often arrives with anxiety, and it does not come from the outside world. It comes from within. It is the inner critic, whispering, "Why are you like this? You should be stronger. You're a burden. You're failing." Over time, that voice does not only create fear, it creates shame. And shame is heavy. It isolates. It convinces us that we must hide even from ourselves. But Buddhist wisdom offers a radical antidote: compassion, not just for others, but especially for ourselves. This may feel unfamiliar. Many of us were raised in times when emotional needs were silenced, when endurance was praised, and self-sacrifice was called noble. You cared for children, for parents, for partners. You were strong, dependable, the one others leaned upon. But what happened to your own weariness, your own grief, your own fears? Often they were shelved away, waiting in silence. And now, when the noise of life has quieted, all that was postponed rushes back at once: anxiety, guilt, sorrow, regret. Yet the Buddha reminds us, you yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. These words are not indulgence, they are medicine. I remember Ruth, a nurse by profession and a caregiver by nature. For decades, she was the strong one, always keeping it together. But after retirement, and especially after losing her sister, Ruth began to experience waves of anxiety that startled her. "Why now?" she asked. "I've always managed before." She felt foolish, even ashamed. During a retreat, a teacher invited her group to place a hand on their hearts and silently repeat, "May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I accept myself just as I am." At first, Ruth resisted. Her chest tightened, tears welled. The practice felt selfish, foreign, but with gentle guidance, she tried again. Slowly, something softened. She realized that self-compassion was not about inflating her ego. It was about softening the hard edges of judgment. It was about meeting her own pain with the same care she had given so freely to others. From then on, Ruth began writing letters to herself. Letters of forgiveness for the days she was too tired to keep going, for the moments she could not explain her feelings, for the times she was simply human. And little by little, she began to feel whole again, not because anxiety disappeared, but because she no longer faced it with harshness. This is the practice of compassion. It is not a magic cure. It does not erase every storm, but it transforms how we move through storms. Compassion turns anxiety from a prison into a path. It teaches us to walk alongside our pain instead of against it. Here are a few simple ways you can bring this into daily life. Speak kindly to yourself, especially when anxious. Replace "what's wrong with me" with "this is hard and I'm doing my best." Place your hand on your heart in anxious moments. A physical gesture of care can remind you, you are not abandoned. Offer yourself the same grace you would offer a dear friend. If you wouldn't say it to them, don't say it to yourself. Remember your resilience. You have survived so much, and you are still learning. That is enough. Compassion does not mean weakness. It means courage, the courage to treat your own heart as tenderly as you would treat the heart of a child. And when we bring compassion into the practice of mindfulness, something profound becomes possible. In our next reflection, we'll meet the most liberating thought of all, one that dissolves anxiety at its root. This is not mine. This is not me. This is not who I am. There are moments when anxiety feels so close, so overwhelming, that it seems to fuse with our very identity. The rapid heartbeat, the restless thoughts, the heavy chest, they don't just feel like experiences. They feel like us. And in those moments, it is easy to whisper, "I am anxious," as though anxiety is who we are, rather than something passing through. But more than 2,500 years ago, the Buddha offered a teaching so profound and yet so simple that it still frees hearts today. In the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, he spoke of non-self, the truth that we are not the thoughts, sensations, or emotions that move through us. Just as the sky is not the storm, we are not our anxiety. The liberating phrase is this: this is not mine. This is not me. This is not who I am. These words are not denial. They are not an escape. They are a gentle release of the false belief that suffering defines us. Consider Walter, an 82-year-old widower who described anxiety as a constant knot in his chest. "It feels," he once said, "like I am disappearing into fear." At a mindfulness group, the teacher guided them through meditation, softly repeating, "This is not mine. This is not me. This is not who I am." Walter sat with his hand on his heart, repeating the words quietly. At first, the anxiety still swirled, but something shifted. The knot loosened, if only a little. And for the first time in years, he could breathe with space around his fear. Over the following weeks, Walter carried this phrase into his daily life. When worry rose in the night, he whispered, "This is not mine." When his mind shouted with dread, he replied, "This is not me." And when the weight of loneliness pressed hard, he reminded himself, "This is not who I am." Slowly, the storm softened. The fear was still there, but it no longer defined him. Let's look closely at this mantra. This is not mine. The emotion does not belong to you. It is not your possession, not something you must guard or defend. It is simply something arising, like a wave on the ocean. This is not me. You are not your anxiety. You are not broken or flawed. You are the witness, the awareness, the vastness within which the experience unfolds. This is not who I am. Your identity is not made of fear or sorrow. Beneath every passing storm, your true nature remains. Steady, compassionate, whole. Each time you repeat these words, you step back from the storm. You shift from being inside the turbulence to being the sky that contains it. And in that shift, freedom is born not because the anxiety disappears, but because it loses its power to define you. Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Feelings come and go like clouds in a windy sky. Conscious breathing is my anchor." The same is true here. This phrase becomes an anchor, a lighthouse in the fog. Each repetition lights the way back to your essence, the essence that was never broken by fear. So, the next time anxiety rises, do not say, "I am anxious." Say instead, "This is not mine. This is not me. This is not who I am." Watch how the grip loosens, how the sky opens, how your breath steadies. And from that place of freedom, the practice deepens. In our next reflection, we'll explore how to carry this mantra into the ordinary moments of daily life, into the washing of dishes, the folding of blankets, the long nights and early mornings, so that peace becomes not just a teaching, but a way of living. It is one thing to hear a teaching that stirs the heart. It is another to carry it into the quiet, ordinary spaces of daily life, the hours when dishes wait in the sink, when the phone doesn't ring, when joints ache, when the house feels too still. This is where the true practice unfolds, not on distant mountaintops or inside temple walls, but in kitchens, gardens, bedrooms, sidewalks, and waiting rooms. The phrase, "This is not mine, this is not me, this is not who I am," is not meant to live only on meditation cushions. It is meant to be whispered in the moments when anxiety visits uninvited at 3 o'clock in the morning, when the chest feels heavy, when loneliness echoes through an empty room, when a memory stirs regret or a worry steals the breath. Imagine this. You wake in the night, heart pounding, thoughts racing. Instead of spiraling deeper, you pause. You place a hand on your chest, breathe slowly and say, "This is not mine." Another breath. "This is not me." Another, this is not who I am. With each repetition, a little distance opens. You are still here, breathing, alive. The storm does not vanish instantly, but it no longer defines the sky. Or imagine folding laundry, the mind restless with worries about tomorrow. Instead of tightening into the thought, you notice the fabric in your hands, the rhythm of breath, the present act. You whisper gently, I am here, and here is enough. In that simple return, peace has already begun. This is how the practice becomes seamless. It is not a separate ritual from life, it is life itself, infused with awareness. The Buddha's teachings were never meant to remain lofty philosophy. They were meant to be lived, tested, embodied in the everyday. To breathe mindfully as you wash a cup is already to practice freedom. To notice the warmth of sunlight while walking outside is already to remember, this moment belongs to peace. Think of your nervous system as a child that needs reassurance. Each time you return to your breath, each time you repeat the mantra, you are teaching your body, you are safe now. You are not trapped in the past. You are not drowning in the future. You are here. Slowly, gently, the body learns to trust this truth. Try this guided rhythm now. Inhale, this is not mine. Exhale, this is not me. Inhale, this is not who I am. Exhale, I am here. No perfection is required, only presence. The Vietnamese teacher Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, "The present moment is filled with joy and happiness. If you are attentive, you will see it. That attentiveness is the gift of practice. You may not notice joy immediately. You may only notice small things, the steady beat of your heart, the sound of wind, the warmth of your breath. But those small things are the doorway to something larger, the remembrance that your essence is never broken." And so, each anxious thought becomes a teacher, each breath a return, each ordinary act a meditation. In this way, peace is not postponed until tomorrow or locked away in rare moments. Peace becomes the very ground on which you walk. And yet, even with practice, anxiety may still knock at the door. The difference is this: when it does, you will know how to greet it with kindness. In our next reflection, we will return to the heart of Buddhist wisdom, compassion. For it is compassion, especially for ourselves, that softens anxiety and turns even fear into a path of healing. Return now to the image we began with: the quiet night, the heavy silence, the familiar chair. Once this silence may have felt unbearable, pressing in with the weight of anxious thoughts. But seen differently, it is not an enemy, it is an invitation. Anxiety was never proof of weakness. It was never evidence that something is wrong with you. It was a messenger, pointing gently back to the heart of Buddhist wisdom. Everything changes, but your essence remains. When you whisper, "This is not mine, this is not me, this is not who I am," you are not pretending anxiety isn't there. You are remembering that you are more spacious than your fear. You are the sky, not the passing storm. You are the stillness that holds even the most restless thought. This is the quiet revolution, learning not to run from anxiety, not to drown in it, but to meet it with presence, compassion, and release. To unclench the fists of the mind, to treat each thought as a cloud, to remember that beneath it all, you have always been whole. So the next time silence grows heavy, pause, place a hand on your heart, breathe in and breathe out. Say to yourself with tenderness, "This is not mine, this is not me, this is not who I am." And notice how the grip loosens, how space returns, how peace steps quietly back into the room. The Buddha never promised a life without storms. What he offered was something greater: the tools to remain steady within the storm, the wisdom to see that you were never broken, only waiting to remember who you truly are. And so, dear friend, the invitation remains: walk gently, breathe deeply, and come home to the calm that has always lived within you.